Welcome. My name is Barry Merrick. I'm co-founder and CEO at Ivy and the chapter chair of YPO Metro New York. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce all of you to Braam, joining us from South Africa. Braam, how are you today?
I am jolly fine, as they say.
That's great. I'm so glad that you're joining us today, and I couldn't be more excited for the conversation we're going to have. For context, for everybody who's joining us, we're going to be talking about how we can all better master extreme performance and conquer the impossible, whatever that means for us. Braam is truly an extraordinary guide for a conversation of this nature. He is an extreme adventurer. He's an international motivational speaker. He's a passionate conservationist, youth developer, and an author. In his lifetime, amongst many other incredible accomplishments, he has accomplished four firsts. Four firsts in the world. So the first one is that he ran the entire length of the Great Wall of China in one single attempt. So that's 4,200 kilometers back to back, which equates to about running a full marathon every single day for 98 days in a row. He also ran the entire coastline of South Africa. He represented South Africa in a race to the South Pole, and he rode across the Atlantic Ocean, starting from Cape Town all the way to Rio de Janeiro in 92 days. So there's a tremendous amount we can learn from Braam, and I can already tell you, based on my brief conversation with him earlier today, that he's one of the most inspiring people I've ever had a chance to host and get to know. So Braam, thank you again for being here. My first question to you is really starting with, what is that vision that drives you forward to conquer these extreme feats, to have these achievements? What is the overarching vision that drives you?
It's a great question, and thank you for having me as your guest. I like to simplify things, but it's having a purpose beyond ego. When you're in the middle of the Gobi Desert, there's no ego. There's no one to pat you on the shoulder, or running your comrades marathon in South Africa, or whatever. It's about, what is the message you're going to leave behind? What is your legacy? It's not my quote, I wish it was, but there's an amazing saying which says, at death, what is the definition of hell? Now, I'm not coming from a religious perspective, out of respect for other people's beliefs, but hell is arriving at the end of your life and meeting the person you could have been. I'm not going to be in that place. So I want to disagree with you on one point. I don't think I'm extraordinary. I think I'm ordinary. But the word extra is having that purpose beyond ego.
Beautifully said, Braam. Thank you so much. So you would say, like, one of the key ingredients of living this extreme performance life, which I would love for you to define next, is to have a purpose beyond the ego. So for all of us participating in this conversation today, that's the first step. Do we have that? Are we, if we were to meet the person that we could have been on the day that we die, are we going to feel like, wow, maybe I could have done more? Or did we pursue something beyond our ego? So for all of us, you know, not many of us are going to, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did want you to define what's your definition of extreme performance? Many of us might think of different things, but what is it when it comes to you for that particular phrase?
Well, to reiterate, it's, what is your purpose? What is the legacy? I'm 63 years old. I had to actually count that quickly. I'm 63 years old. My son is 33. And I want to leave a legacy. It's shocking what we're doing to this planet. Really shocking. So for me, it's when I'm on that deathbed, I want to feel I've done good. And with no apology, it's not about helping Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, which is my next expedition, which I'll share with you if you'd like to. It's about joining each other. One earth, one home, one mission. That's my logo. I'm going to just show you this quickly.
Love that.
Okay, so none of us have an excuse to not be an asset, because as a game ranger as well, in nature, you're either an asset or you're a liability. And if you're a liability, you're taken out of the equation. That's what happens. So the impala or the antelope or whatever that is injured is the one that's injured. It hinders the rest of the herd. And they're taken out of the system. Why are we exempt from that? Well, we're not. Look what we're doing to this earth. Climate change, 22 years of study. What is your end point? It's such a cliched thing, but what is your end point before you die? And then you've got something called a time frame. It might be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, doesn't matter. But you've got to make that work. It's an implementation process. So I'm not extraordinary. I'm just the word extra by doing these crazy adventures and so on. And a whole lot of people are walking in here in the middle of this interview. Sorry, just excuse me a sec.
All good, all good. So Braam, thank you. So what I'm hearing from you is key questions we got to ask ourselves. What is the endpoint we want? How can we be an asset? What's the time frame going to be? So
how can you be an asset?
Yeah. So my next question to you is, you chose to, do these like incredible feats, like whether it's the Great Wall of China or rowing across the Atlantic. For all of us, we have the equivalence of that in our lives, right? We all have that equivalent of what we consider to be that impossible task.
I'm on a Zoom conference internationally, if you don't mind. Sorry. Okay, sorry,
right.
Go ahead.
All good. All right, so I was gonna say, we all have our own specific challenges in our lives. Share with us how you decide. I wanna basically use this hour as a journey where we can actually figure out how we identify, endure, and then maximize the impact of the challenges that we take on in life. So the step number one of that, after we've identified that bigger purpose beyond the ego, the question is, we got to identify what are the challenges we want to take on. So share with us your mindset and decision-making when you decide which quote unquote impossible challenge you want to take on. What's the criteria you use and how do you plan for it?
Thanks for that. That's a great question. And I'm going to really keep this simple. The word impossible, cut it into two words. After the I am, I'm possible. Make it into two words. I'm not unique. Every one of us is destined for greatness. So it's all about I'm possible. But if you're not an asset, again, I'm reiterating, you're a liability. So when I choose to do an expedition, it's not I'm going to run up Lion's Head. I don't know if you know Cape Town very well, but it's kind of where I live. Run up and down a mountain a couple of times. It's not going to create an impression. But when you do something like my dear friend, Professor Noakes, says, he was my coach, by the way, before I ran the Great Wall of China and before I rode across the Atlantic Ocean. He said to me, it's physically impossible. And in the foreword of my book, and by the way, I think it's still available on Kalahari and Amazon, it's called The Great Run. And as mentioned, the great run of our lives. And you only enrich your life by enriching those around you. And I'm not talking about me and other humans, I'm talking about nature. Nature is what keeps us alive. So, I don't want to sound like a psychologist now, but being definitive about where you want to end is vital. And most of us don't. We go through entire lives not knowing where we're going to end. We live in a world of greed, instant gratification. I want it now. Think of the birth of the credit card. Okay, you can have it now, but you're going to pay me back the rest of your life. Think of a bond on your home. You can have it now, but you're going to pay me back the rest of your life. What are you putting back in to the system that makes you an asset? A lot of people can't even answer that. With all due respect, they don't even get it.
Got it. So essentially, when we're picking a challenge, when we're picking the peak that we want to climb, whatever that is in our personal life, in our professional life, be it for nature or for our communities at large, what you're saying is that our decisions should be driven by what's going to really make us the biggest positive asset to those around us, and moving the world forward, what's going to really make that impact. And we can only really enrich ourselves on that journey by really focusing on how we want to enrich others. And this, what you're underlining over and over again, and you're quite right, like many people, if you just force them right now to say, okay, what's the end that you're driving for? Truly, some of us might struggle to tell you clearly what that is. So thank you for the call to action to, have that foremost in mind when we decide what are the key things we want to accomplish while we still get to be alive. Share with us, once you do decide your challenge, whatever it may be for any of us, once we decide that key challenge we want to really push for so that we can unlock our potential and be our full selves, how do you prepare? What is your process mentally, physically, spiritually? What are the things you do to prepare yourself to actually get to that point where you're going to run those, the equivalent of 98 marathons back to back? Like, what is your process for preparation?
I would say just 3 very simple sentences. Dream big, plan well, and make the impossible possible. And I want to reiterate, I am not exceptional. But if you have those three points, dream big, plan well, nothing is impossible. We limit ourselves, we restrict ourselves through all of our lives. And we end up dying that way. We're talking about what, 7.3 billion people, 7.8 billion actually, people on the planet right now. The earth can't sustain that, it can't hold that. I do talks in nature with kids, really underprivileged kids that have been molested and removed. They're called wards of the state. They're taken away from their families. And I have a little girl, Eleanor, 16 years old, and she didn't want to leave my camp, which is in nature. And she said, why am I not dead? And she's has slashed wrists, tried to hang herself a few times. And she is an absolute gem and precious asset to our planet. And it's not because of what I did. I just put her on a path. Said, where do you want to go? What do you need to do in order to forgive? Because you don't forgive, you don't forget, and then you hold it inside, and you end up being I would say, a bigger mess than you even were before you came to the camp. That's why I asked you to play a song, Wild Thing.
Yeah, that was a great one. So just to be clear, so if the first step is to dream big, what's the specific prompt? What is a prompt that you would use to get someone to dream bigger? Like for all of us, for example, here, like what are those prompts that could get us? Say it again.
Change. It's the word change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So one has to grasp that it is in your hands. That's quite a good pun, actually. It's in your hands to precipitate change. And we underestimate ourselves. We really do. So change is a doing word. Love, as I said earlier, it's a verb, it's a doing word. But that means it implies an action. But most people are just, in my view, only don't want to change. We are terrible creatures of habit. Just habit. Stay the same, do the same, and then what changes? You know, Maslow's hierarchy was very simply and succinctly put. He simply said, you know, if you have warmth, well, shelter will come along with that. Food and water, you will procreate. So what is beyond that point? So what do you internalize? What do you put in here and say, what is the asset that I can be? So when I plan a mission, an expedition, next one's in March, next year, it's about what is going to be the result of that mission. Because otherwise it's pointless. Who am I? I'm some guy that people go, oh, well done, Braam, you know, means nothing. How many people I can influence means everything. One people, as Gandhi so eloquently put it, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And that makes all the difference.
Excellent, Braam. So just zoning in on the planning well portion. So first of all, when you're making that plan, you start with the end result and have that drive your planning. What about, you know, like specifically mentally and physically, how do you get yourself into the right mindset so that when the day comes and you commence your mission, you're in the best possible mindset, best possible also physical prep for it? What are the key things that, like in that planning phase, let's say you have a year to prepare for something, how do you approach it to make sure that you're as well prepared as possible?
Okay, I'm going to again reiterate, begin with the end in mind. And that comes from that wonderful book by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first habit, of which the others don't make, can you excuse me for 1 second? Sorry.
Let's give Braam a minute, everybody. Apologies. Hey, Braam, if you could unmute, please, that would be great. You're just muted on your computer.
Okay, unmute.
We got you now. Yep, we got it.
So Pegasus Nkwala is a Xhosa man, and he's worked for me, not worked for me, he's worked with me. I use that term for 28 years. And the whole issue is, what is my end purpose? And it comes back to this every time. It sounds cliched, it sounds silly. He's an impoverished guy that was brought up in a horrendous apartheid South African world. And he forgives. He forgives. He lets it go. And then I look at him and go, so Pegasus, so what's your purpose? He says, to make a future. He has a standard 6, what you call it, grade 8 in your lingo, I would guess, a grade 8 education. But what a wise man. You're either an asset or you're a liability. It's that simple. So my question to you and your audience is that simple. Are you an asset or are you a liability? And if you're a liability and you want to change, what do you need to do? That's the defining moment. What do you need to do?
Yeah. Critical, right? What's the change that we want to see in the world? What's the change we need to make to achieve that full potential? Braam, so let's say for many of us, right, for many of us, we're in the midst of our journeys, right? Many of us are struggling with our equivalent of rowing across the Atlantic. For some of us, that's in our organization. For some of us, that's certain relationships or policy things that we're involved in or causes that really mean a lot to us. Share with us about endurance and thriving in the moment where, you know, when you're undertaking these long journeys, right, that are weeks long, months long, years long, sometimes for decades, depending on what our endeavor is. Share with us your key approaches to endurance. How do you overcome those darkest moments? And how do you build on the positive moments to make sure that you get to whatever it is, that finish line you set for yourself?
Okay, great question. 2 questions, actually. So, excuse me a moment. So the first one is resilience. When you let the world pull you down, which it does every day of our lives, you're going to go down sinking like that ship. When I was rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, 92 days on the sea, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off for 92 days. With my very good friend, Wayne Robertson. So I'd row, he'd row, 92 days. You are incredibly lonely. But there's an upside to that. It's called reflection. It gives you a huge amount of time to introspect, to actually say, what have I done right? What have I done wrong? And then I say to myself, well, to be frank, there's no right or wrong. There's simply, what can I do to change? So in preparation for a journey like that, sponsorship, changing the subject slightly, massive amounts of sponsorship. It's millions. It doesn't happen in a nanosecond. And then again, I come back to what is the outcome? Because if you don't have that end point in mind, you won't achieve the journey. And that's what life is all about. It's about the journey. Stephen Covey's book again, begin with the end in mind. That's his first point in his 7 habits. If you don't have an end in mind, we might as well not even be having this conversation, to be frank.
Right, absolutely. So you mentioned something really powerful there about loneliness when it's, you know, and I think many of us can resonate on this. When you're really endeavoring something, you've taken a chance, you're making the change, but it's really tough and sometimes you feel really alone. You talk about the power of being alone. You talked about, you know, how it gives you this chance to introspect. Dive a bit deeper there. What are most people not doing in embracing that very scary feeling of loneliness and aloneness? And how can they overcome it and embrace it?
Fear. As an acronym, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. So we put 90%, and I'm generous in saying that, of actually saying, I'm going to be worried about this, I'm going to be worried about that, about summonses, about courts, about whatever, my family, divorce, whatever. False evidence appearing real. 90% of the things we worry about in our lives do actually not come to fruition. Think about that. So when you take the 10% and you kick fear into the gutter, now just going to elaborate a bit on that. There are two types of fear. There's a healthy fear and a very unhealthy fear. The healthy fear, if you're an antelope or a giraffe or whatever, and you're going to the water hole, there could be crocodiles in the water, there could be lions behind you. That's a healthy fear. An unhealthy fear is the things we put in our heads that never come to fruition. They destroy us, they destroy relationships, they destroy our lives. And if you want to make it mega, we destroy the earth.
Thank you for that, Braam. So, you know, you talk about this healthy and unhealthy fear, how like 90% of the time we're just worried about stuff that's never going to happen anyway. That being said, you know, at peak fear, when we're at our like the darkest day, the lowest low, right? That point where it really feels like the world is coming crashing down. Share with us like a very specific real life example of like when you were at that point and how you brought yourself back on track. Whichever example you want to pick.
Okay, it's kind of a tough one. I mean, one was the apartheid years when I was in the permanent force military. In those horrendous apartheid years, as said earlier, and it's called indoctrination. And then a more modern one would be in 8,100 kilometers of rowing across, which has never been done, and I'm doing a bit of a brag here, across the South Atlantic from Cape Town to Rio. 8,100 km. I trolled for fish, 2 lines behind the stern, the back of the boat. Not one bite. In 5,000 of those 8,100 km, I never saw an albatross. I never saw anything. No bird, no bite on a fishing line, no zippo. Absolutely nothing. We've really raped our earth. And we are in a thing called denial. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry actually, I'm being very dramatic, but we're murdering our own existence. So my one hardship, major one on the road, if I can just stick to that one for a second, apart from going to the South Pole, because I had that as well with minus 45 degrees Celsius, which is called the continentation. I don't ever want to go there. Was rowing at night, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever, and there's no life. And then what brought me out of that, now I negate it, because I mean, now I'm not going, oh, my whole big purpose, this is what we're going to do. It was actually acknowledging that it's okay to be alone. It's actual right to be alone. And then I'd row, and it's 60% legs, by the way, so you push with your legs on a sliding seat. And no life for 5,000 of those 8,100 kilometers. No life, nothing. Dive under the boat. You go and try and wash yourself in salt water every day. And I don't mean to sound crude, but check where you get your rashes. Not rations, rashes. Okay. So it's about saying, do I give up? So my DOT app, my Do One Thing app, they bailed on me in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. They were going to take a shareholding. And that was it. And then they bailed on me. They said, oh, we haven't enough money for this. So I was in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. There's a lot of people walking around here. So what are my choices? Give up or give hope? So that's where I sit. that sometimes I couldn't sleep. I've suffered, and still am, to be frank, and I'm openly happy to share this, suffering from extreme post-traumatic stress disorder. I have two amazing psychologists that are working me through this process. And how do I explain this? When you feel deprived of everything, and for me, everything is losing the earth. We don't have a Mars to go to. All these people like Elon Musk and whatever, let's go to Mars. Really? We have this beautiful gem of a place called Earth with a capital E. And that's what I fight for and will continue fighting for. So it's a very long-winded answer, but that keeps me going.
Thank you so much, Braam. I mean, what's coming across so clearly time and again, and every comment you make, is you've anchored yourself in such a deep sense of purpose, and you're willing to give it all for that. And that's deeply inspiring. And I want to thank you for digging so deep and sharing so personally. That really means a lot to all of us. So thank you for that. I want to now take this example of, like, there are a lot of us that go through hardship, they take on challenges. That's one thing. But like you said, it's also really important to make sure we maximize the impact of these journeys, right? Not just what we get out of it, but also what it gives back to the world, to those we love, but also those who we may not even know. So share with us your key lessons when it comes to maximizing the impact of your journey. What have you found really enables people to get behind you and also be inspired by you? But, you know, like, just whatever you're undertaking, how do you make sure that the outcome is as positive and as long lasting as possible? And if you could just up your camera a little bit so we get you on the screen, that would be amazing.
The word inspire starts with I-N. Like I am possible, as I mentioned earlier, and inspire. One's got to go inward and then have the courage to go outward. And I'm really going to reiterate this point. I'm no flipping hero. I just have a big purpose and I'm guided. So again, atheist, agnostic, Jewish, Christian, irrelevant to me. It's what can you put back, not how much you can take. Because that's what's happening to the whole planet right now. How much can I take as quickly as possible?
Say a bit more about going in. So you said inspire, you have to go inward before you go outward. What did you mean by that?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it's about. And I want to throw another word in there. It's called courage. Have the courage and the guts to face that other fear, the real fear of, heck, I could die, the world's a mess, etc. Oh, you know, the world will survive no matter what. No, it won't survive. It's about deeply going inward and saying, what makes me look different to you? And I do. And you look different to me. So it's about, if I go inward, what can I then put outward? I'm going to throw something at you. It's a big one. The earth is about, well, they say, before life, 4.3 billion years. First life was 3.2 billion years. We've had 5 extinctions. And we think the dinosaurs was a big one. It wasn't a big one. It was tiny. The Permian extinction, which was the biggest extinction on Earth, where 95% of all animals, not all animals, all life on Earth, flora and fauna, went extinct. 95%. 250,000 years ago. Now what's happening? Now we're doing 60 to 80,000 per year, as I mentioned earlier. Can we change it? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's through your platforms, through what you're doing, with your sharing. I'm just a voice on a flipping screen right now. You can make a massive difference through media. It's called education, and that precipitates change. So 95% of all species have survived. Only in 250,000 years. Here's the joke. Well, it's not a joke. It's actually very serious. Bear with me on this one. People say, oh yeah, but nature will survive and everything's going to be fine. No, it won't. The difference is we only sequestered our bacteria and our lives in the carbon of 250,000 Permian extinction. Sounds like a long time. It's not. This time round, there will be no life. I just love your audience to contemplate that for a moment. There will be no life. In other words, we will be a Mars. A completely dead Earth. No insects, no plants, no humans. Most humans go with the thing of, yeah, but you know what? Let us all go, the Earth will survive. No, it won't. And you can Google that. Please do that. Please do that. Go and Google that stuff. We're done and dusted. Unless we fix in the next, and I'm being very philanthropic here now, in the next 10 to 15 years, if we don't fix the mess we've made, there will be no we. Go and Google it. Don't just take my word for this. Peer-reviewed scientific papers. Now I'm exhausted.
Thank you, Braam. We're gonna, as we get closer to wrapping up, I'm definitely gonna ask you for key steps we can take when it comes to the environment and protecting our planet. Before I do that though, I just wanna ask you, so whenever we're visualizing some of these extreme accomplishments that you've had, we talked a lot about loneliness when you're by yourself and so forth. But the truth is, in everything that you've done, all the initiatives that you lead, you're a leader. You're pushing across causes, you're inspiring people, you're getting thousands, millions of people to pay better attention, to push themselves to be better, and so forth. So share with us just your perspective on leadership specifically when it comes to other people around us, right? No matter how motivated we are, no matter how much we know the ends we want, without other people, we're just not going to get very far. So share with us your kind of philosophy when it comes to leadership, galvanizing other people, empowering other people.
Okay, great question. First part of leadership is called ownership. So as long as we blame, as long as the government's at fault, as long as corruption is out there, which it is everywhere, we can go from Trump to Putin to our guy here. We look at Mugabe. The guy that's taken his place is more corrupt than he's ever been. So unless you take personal ownership, and it's not just putting your stamp on a vote to change a government, it's an action, it's a daily action. It's every day. What are you going to do differently? Very important. Differently. I'll give you an example. Bit corny, but I love it. I don't know the guy's name. He's a general. He's doing a talk. Sure, I wish I knew his name now. Anyway, but he's got all of these stuff on his helmet. And he said, always get up and make your bed. Now that sounds corny. When you wake up in the morning, make your own bed. Clean up your act right there in a physical, contextual space. Make your own bed, and then you get on with your day. Then you splash water on your face. Or I'm privileged to have a small tiny swimming pool, and I go and wake myself up by getting into very cold water in the middle of November. But make your own bed, and there's a metaphor in that. Change starts with you, no one else. And if you allow the media to influence your life, which it does, if you go to the JSE, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, if you go to Wall Street, you go anywhere and look at media, there's not one, and I challenge you on this one, there's not one single story that is about positivity. It's all about all the shit that's going on. And that's what we live by. And you think you're better because there's more shit than you? Excuse the language, apologies to everyone. But it's about you make it positive. Stop this finger pointing thing. We do it all the time. Not you and I.
Excellent. Thank you, Braam. So make your bed, take responsibility, and don't point the finger to others. Very well said. I've got one final very brief question for you, and then we're going to dive into the audience Q&A. Everyone participating live, please submit your questions in the Q&A box. However, Braam can best guide you. We'd love to hear from you, and I'll be sure to ask every question that gets submitted best I can.
And I'm happy to give you my email address as well. I'm not shy about that.
Perfect.
So anyone wants to contact me on email, they're very welcome.
Perfect. So very final question before we go into the audience Q&A, Braam, is what's next for you? What are the one or two projects you're most passionate about right now? Just share with us what those are and any key learnings from what's driving those.
Okay, so in March next year, I'm going to be doing 700 kilometers in the Namib Desert. It doesn't sound far, but it's pretty far in desert regions. And I'm going to be working with the Khoisan, or the Bushmen. They're called the First People. And by the way, it's the oldest desert on Earth. And as I said earlier, I'm going to be embracing, as a facilitator, different religions, beliefs, traditions. And then from there, working with the First People, we're going to move to Sahara, and I'm doing 700 kilometers in the Sahara Desert. And the core team of these different religions actually holding hands, embracing change. Yeah, and as I said earlier, Gandhi, being the change you want to see in the world. So that's what's coming up.
Excellent, Braam. Thank you. Can't wait to learn more about it. I'm going to dive into the audience questions now. And we'll try to do like 1-minute answers to the extent possible. These are big questions. So first question is from April Galda, and she asks, when you have to keep moving, keep pushing yourself physically, what goes through your head to keep you moving forward?
Dreams, intention, integrity, believing I'm an asset, even where there are many moments that I don't feel I am. And I really want to reiterate this point. This lady that sent this question, what is her integrity? What is she going to do to make a difference? And when we unite in that particular fashion, we really do change the world. We do. You either sit on, you err on the side of negativity or positivity. That's it.
Very nice.
That's my email address. I'm very happy for you to share that with anyone you want to.
Perfect. Thank you. April, you've got your question for you back. So hopefully that's useful. Next one is from Hugo Naily. He says, hi, Braam. Thanks for this uplifting talk. What is your most inspiring animal and why?
Okay. The leopard. The leopard. I've saved quite a lot of leopards in my life. Well, I haven't saved, I've just helped save them from gin traps and being brutally slaughtered. The leopard for me has got many spots. And leopards, yes, we always say in life, they don't change these spots, right? I've watched leopards change the entire behavior. And why the leopard compared to, let's say, lions? If you look at Pantheropods, which is the same gene, the Kruger leopard and the Cape leopard, exactly the same genetic pool. The Kruger leopard has a terrain of maybe 5 to 10,000 kilometers maximum. Okay, because who are their enemies? Competitors, hyenas and lions. So they have to be strong, muscular, kill the impala or young zebra, and be able to pull it up into a tree. The Cape leopard, Pantheropods, exactly the same gene pool. We've collared them, and they've done 1,500 kilometers of territory marking. And that one male, solitary, will have maybe 5, possibly 6 females in its territory. And it sound marks, which is like a sword, goes. Sorry, it's not being interrupted. They scent mark and they scratch mark. Usually on wild olive trees in the Cedarburg Mountains. But they do 1,500 kilometers to protect that entire, what do we call them? They're not a pride, but 5 or 6 females. And then they have gateways where the females can move in and out of the territory, but they never challenge each other. We do. The other reason to answer this gentleman's question is the leopard is very solitary, silent hunter. 90% of kills are bites on the neck or the throat. But they move massive distances to protect what is sacred to them. Their ladies. I think we can learn a lot from that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Braam. Next question is from Eric Spencer. He asks, when you complete one of these epic feats, what is the spectrum of emotions that you feel?
I didn't hear that end part.
When you complete one of these epic feats, what is the spectrum of emotions that you feel?
Oh. Extreme loneliness. I have no right to expect people to understand that it doesn't deprive the loneliness. Greatest love of my life is Benjamin. He's my son. 33 years old. I miss him. We're a bit distant at the moment. But so it goes. But you come home and then you want to make a movie. And then you want to do this and that. And like my second book now and so on. It's a very lonely place. Very lonely place. I wake up at 4 in the morning with nightmares. That's not a pleasant thing to share, but that's the truth of it. So I'm going to chuck something on the table for you. I don't know how to get it to you, but I'll give you 5 books for free. And you make the choice of people that chuck a good question at me on my email. I'll pay the postage, the whole thing. Called The Great Run, as I said way earlier.
Excellent. Thank you, Braam. Next question is from Jamie Grania Belmont. He asks, how have you dealt with injuries during these extreme runs or rows? How do you recover mentally and physically?
Okay, very simple answer, very slowly. Mentally, it's way longer. Physically, you know, when I did the great run, it was actually, I just got fitter on the run. Mentally, I get really sad at how few people change. You ask me some amazing questions, which I truly appreciate. But so people actually do the change. So that's where I struggle the most. I need the media. I need to train people mentally as well, not just physically. That's the easiest part. But the recovery is forgiveness. And I struggle with that. To be honest, I struggle with that.
Powerful. Thank you, Braam, so much for sharing so deeply. On a related note, Luz Maria Resendez asks, how do you manage to embrace frustration when you realize that people don't want to change, even when they have a chance, and that affects your ultimate dream to make the world better?
You never give up hope. You never give up hope. Tenacious, caring, not blaming. You just don't give up hope.
Excellent. Braam, thank you so much. We've just got a couple of minutes left. You were wonderful in the ways in which you answered these questions. You've given us a ton to think about. On my side, I'm going to be reflecting really deeply on, am I dreaming big enough? Is this really like, what else could I be doing? How can I stretch myself further? And then what very specific action am I going to take? What am I really going to do differently? You know, 2020 is nearing to a close.
Well, I'll give
What am
you
I
one.
going to do? Go ahead.
I'll give you one. No, I'll give
Go
you
ahead.
one. Something you can do. So when I finish the Sahara and the Namib, we're going to have the Queen of Jordan, who's British, by the way, swimming across the river, and these 6 religions and atheists and so on, we're going to finish on Temple on the Mount. So what's there? Jew, Christian, Muslim. We're going to unite in one particular space with no more fighting.
So how can we best get involved, Braam? That was going to be my question to you. How can we best support you, your endeavors, and what are the final, like if you were to give us another 1 or 2 calls to action or words of wisdom, what would they be? And we'll close out with that.
Sure. The minute we don't take a stand, we destroy. So take a stand. It doesn't have to be Judaism. It doesn't have to be Muslim. It doesn't have to be Christianity. It doesn't have to be atheist. Be positive, hold on to hope, and be, as Gandhi said again, the change you want to see in the world. It's an action. Simple answer.
Thank you so much. And tell us a little more about what's on your shirt. Do one thing challenge. What is that?
Say that again. I didn't hear that last one.
What you're wearing on your shirt, the do one thing challenge. Can you share a little bit more about that with us as well, so we keep that in mind? Thank you. Any kind of comments on what you'd encourage us to do when it comes to not just our journey and goals, but also about the planet that you care so passionately about, and we all do. What can be something that we could all commit to that would be meaningful for all of us?
Do one thing. So for instance, when I mentioned to you earlier, water, waste, conservation, energy. As a guy, when you shave, don't run the water while you're shaving. As a man or a woman, when you're brushing your teeth, don't keep the tap running. When you flush the toilet, I'm only talking water now. Have a lift that stops the water running. There are so many really simple things, hundreds of things, and that's going to be on the app when it comes up, the dot app, and before March. And it's powerful. People hate big change, but if you give little enticing things, small change, those little things, the ripple effects, that's a good pun actually, but the ripple effects can change the world. It's just numbers. And we can do it.
Excellent,
That's
Braam.
me.
You were truly extraordinary today. This was so inspiring and galvanizing. And I hope what I'm going to be doing, and I would encourage everybody to do, is we're about to enter a new year. And instead of a whole huge list of resolutions, maybe we can all decide what is the one like most meaningful substantive change that we can truly make this year individually on our paths. And the more clear we are on that,
the dot. What is your dot?
What is your dot?
What is your do one thing? Not
Excellent.
You specifically,
yeah.
To all of your listeners.
Exactly right. So hopefully all of us have a bit of a chance to reflect on that as we enter the closing stages of the year. Braam, I want to thank you so much for being here again, and can't wait to continue this conversation. Can't wait to meet you in person, and hope we all get to meet together in person soon as well.
You're very, very welcome. Privileged to be on.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. All the best. Take care, Braam. See you again soon.